All right, boys, welcome back to the engine bay. I kind of wanted to do a final follow-up video here on this Performance Designs XS LS3 intake manifold. Well, I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder, as they say. I've always said function over form, and if you don't believe me, well, just look at this mess I've created here. Granted, this thing looks like an upside down piece of Tupperware, but overall, I had a pretty tidy engine bay before this intake manifold, but man, this sloppy, lazy engine bay has let go. Doesn't look so hot. So I kind of wanted to dig into that a little bit. A lot of this, I will say, is probably my own fault in that I have the Frankenstein M311 heads, which is the Liberty casting, and it's 1 inch taller than the stock heads. And this intake manifold was designed apparently for the stock heads, and that is it. So I kind of wanted to give you a rundown of what's going on, and you can decide if this is something you want to go down. The overall install and fitment was frustrating, and I'm not really happy. Performance-wise, I think the intake does what it says it does, but it's quite a road to get there. So first thing that I'll talk about is, due to the extra height, where the heater hose comes in here, it's contacting the coil. And so I'm kind of, worried over heat and time and vibrations. It's going to rub a hole into that, and I'm going to spring a leak. And part of that is made worse because what they have you do on the coil brackets, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see this spacer right here. So you have to raise the coils up. I don't know if that's about 10 millimeters, 3/8 of an inch or something like that. But they have to be raised up. And so that extra height plus the height of the heads is causing some problems. The other thing, due to the extra height, I had to bend the dipstick tube because otherwise it was getting in the way of that number 2 plug coil, this cap right here. Like I could not get it on. So I had to bend that quite a bit. The other thing, this whole mess up here, I had to relocate the evap purge solenoid, which means I can no longer use the hard lines for my evap. So now I have these 2 ugly Chinese pieces of crap in here. Also, I had to have a throttle body harness extension, and I also had to have an extension on the map sensor. This one here is the flex fuel sending unit, but the map sensor is here, and this is like 24 inches. Like ICT billet apparently only offers it in a mile long. The throttle body extension I think is 12 inches, but that seems to work. And all of this is kind of because, I'll move some of this out of the way. Here, maybe we'll try this. Sorry about this crackhead camera work here. I'm trying to do the best I can. I only have 2 hands here. Problem is the map sensor, which you can see right in now, you can see that it is located vertically. And so the plug is at the bottom on the factory manifold. Let's kind of go over here. The factory manifold, you can see the map sensor is located horizontally, and then the plug comes on that side. But this is all... Now, at this juncture, you have PVC lines, evap lines, heater hose lines, the main wiring harness in here. Like, all of this is just a big highway, and you have no other choice, at least on my setup. So I had to move the purge solenoid down here, which wasn't too big of a deal, which means I had to get rid of the factory hard plastic lines, which looked nice compared to this mess. Let's see, moving on the list here. The fuel injectors, it will not take a taller injector. I went to the L96 flex fuel injectors, which are 9-10 millimeters taller. ICT billet had a conversion kit, which I'll show you in a little bit. So you can only use the stock factory height fuel injectors for whatever the LS3 is. Oh, and this guy, this is a doozy here. Because you have to raise these brackets, trying to get a good shot here. you can see right here, I had to cut this bracket because this fuel inlet hose was hitting the bracket. So had to slice that apart to allow the fuel line to come through there, which is a little bit crazy. Also, I had a 4-corner steam kit, and I had to get rid of that, and I had to go back to the factory one because this guy is just way too tall. This is the Jegs kit. I got it, the price was right. I think it was about $100. Those A&N fittings were just too tall. They definitely made contact on the front 2 corners. I'm not sure about the back. But either way, I had to take a step backwards and go now to a 2-corner or front factory steam kit. I'll probably work around that. I think the trick is you get one from a truck, and then I think that puts the steam port on the driver's side, and then you can route it up. So I may look into doing something like that in the future. And overall, all this stuff is going to get cleaned up over time. I'll work on it. The resolution to this, I hope, is LSA valve covers. So I'm going to put these bad boys on, and this gets rid of this bracket right here. And you can mount the coils directly to the valve cover, and it moves, apparently, the coils down, like the coils would move, they would slide down that way. And part of the problem, the other issue that I have is, according to the instructions, now this side is not so bad. I sure wish I had a flashlight here. Maybe we'll try. Boom, look at that. So you can see I can get that wiring harness down in there. It tucks in pretty nicely. And then these injector extension should also slip in there, but I guess they kind of do. I might be able to, but the passenger side, it definitely does not. So I'm stuck with this monstrosity up here. So I'm hoping with the new LSA valve covers, that'll really help things out in cleaning things up and hiding some stuff and making some room, and especially fixing that heater hose contact in the back. But as I go through here, I'm going to pull the cover off. I'll show you the problem, the interference of why you need those smaller or shorter regular height injectors. And so I'll kind of show you whatever I find as I go along the way. All right, so I'm slowly peeling back the layers of onions on this thing. My goal for today, I want to get some new injectors in, which I'll cover in a little bit. But I also want to get those LSA valve covers stabbed in today. And so I just kind of wanted to show you this critical spot here where you have your evap solenoid here, and you have your map sensor here, which of course is pointing down. You have your dirty PCV and then clean PCV, including this wiring harness, this guy here. There's just not a lot of room for anything. And this is the map sensor plug. Now, if I could get this main wiring harness to lay down inside of here where it's supposed to go, I might be able to get room. And maybe with the LSA valve covers, I can do that. So onwards, let's keep going. Okay, here's a little bit clearer shot of the fuel line and where I had to cut the mounting bracket for the coils coming through there. Okay, so here's a close-up of my new 2-piece coil bracket, but I wanted to show you another strange modification they have you do to the coils out of the instructions. And that is, these coils get, or the back of the brackets to protect the harness, there's actually 2 pieces of plastic. So this is the piece that you slip inside under here, right? And this goes underneath everything, and this clamps on top of that. And so, it's nice. The factory's like, hey, this is kind of a sensitive area of wiring. We should probably protect it. So they have you remove this, presumably to just give you a little bit more room to tuck the wiring harness between the coil brackets and the valve cover and the head and the intake manifolds. But almost sometimes when I look at it, this bolt here they use for the standoff here, like you can see the silver spacer here, and they give you that longer stainless bolt. It almost kind of looked like it's actually, if they would have used a shorter bolt, maybe they didn't have to, because that bolt actually pushes on the back of this plastic piece here. So I don't know. All right, so let me explain about the injector height. So this is obviously the OEM intake. These are the factory GM L96 fuel injectors, which are about 10 millimeters, 9 or 10 millimeters taller than the normal LS3 ones. So ITC Billet sells a kit, and if this thing would focus, you could see we have, this is the fuel rail, and normally this is mounted directly to the intake, but ITC Billet gives you that spacer and a longer bolt to accommodate for the extra height. Now this won't work in the Performance Designs intake manifold. Let's see why. Back here under the hood, so we have a fuel rail here. It does have the same 2 bolts as the factory one here, and then one in the back. So we could potentially add that spacer underneath these bolts. However, when we get to the lid, we have these molded in little tabs. I don't know if that's supposed to be an extra safety measure to keep the bolts from walking out totally. I mean, it's plastic, right? It would be pretty easy to grind it down an extra 9-10 millimeters, but I'm choosing not to go that route. So I have some different injectors that I'm going to slap in here. So that's what we're doing now. All right, so I'm kind of mostly done. The injectors are swapped out. That was extremely arduous. I feel like everything with this intake is just upping the notch of difficulty when working on things. It's going to take longer, more tools with extensions and swivels, and more cut up hands. Like, for instance, the LSA coil brackets got me more room, but if you look, let me grab a flashlight here. The number 8 coil plug is into the firewall, so to connect it and reconnect it, I have to remove the coil pack off of the valve cover just so I can deal with that boot. But otherwise, it did give me a nice relief in the plug wires, so they're not super tight. And fortunately, it looks like I'm able to get all of the harness and the wires tucked in that little crevice between the valve cover and the intake now, so it's a little bit more tidy, so that's nice. One other thing I noted, the instructions warn you about pinching the extension, the fuel injector extension wires inside of, the flange or the gasket, seal, whatever. And it looks like I got it in 2 places. So there's one, but this one looks like I got it under, like it got caught under that bolt head when I tightened it down. So, pay attention to that. I also noticed the fuel rail bolts are kind of a little bit loose, so I use some blue Loctite this time. All right, we're going to button her up and see how this turns out. I'm also happy to report that with the LSA valve covers, it dropped the coils down off of the heater hose, so there's no more contact. Yay! All right, well, I got it all buttoned up, back together. New valve covers look better. It's a little bit cleaner. The wires tuck in a little bit more, but not night and day difference. And the main harness is loose and floppy. They were clipped into the old brackets. So the quest continues. I'll still find ways to kind of clean up the wiring and hoses and stuff. This is going to be an ongoing fun little project. So I think this will probably wrap up the Under the Hood series turning wrenches, and then we'll get back to the meat and potatoes, which is dealing with ones and zeros, tuning this thing. All right, later.